Hello guys, it's the Return to Books. Today we're going to read Machado About Nothing, a Shakespeare story. In the house of Leonardo, governor of Messenia, all was fuss and flutter. The governor's old friend Don Pedro, Prince of Aragon, and several of his captains had stayed at the house some months earlier. On their way to war, with the war safely won, the prince had decided to visit again on his return. Shortly before Don Pedro's arrival, two lovely young women hurried down to the main courtyard of the governor's house. One was Hero, Leonato's only child. The other was her cousin Beatrice. Though the two were closer than sisters, they had little in common. Dark hair, Hera's innocent blue eyes matched her mild-mannered sweetness. Beatrice had fair hair, a sharp mind, and an even sharper tongue. Lord Claudio fought well, by all accounts, Beatrice remarked to her cousin, as they descended a staircase, "You took quite a fancy to him last time you were here, didn't you? Just as you took a fancy to Lord Benedict," said Hera, blushing. Beatrice rolled her eyes. "Benedict is the most irritating man I've ever met." "Why?" said Hera. "Because he's as witty as you." "Because he thinks he's as witty as me," Beatrice growled. "If he lived off his wheat, he would die of starvation." Here and Beatrice reached the courtyard and stood beside Leonato, just as the princess party rode in through the gates and dismounted. Don Pedro was flanked by Claudio, whose brown curls glowed in the sunlight, and Benedict, whose mouth wore its customary cynical smile. Behind them came Don John, the prince's half-brother, with his servant, Borricho. After embarrassing Leonato, Don Pedro stayed in wonder at Hera. "You've grown so tall while I've been away," he exclaimed. Hera, who was gazing at Claudio, who was gazing back at her, made no reply. "Or have you grown short as my lord?" quipped Benedict. "Perhaps the heavy armor we've been wearing has squashed us." "Why are you prattling on, Benedict? No one's listening," Beatrice said sharply. Benedict mocked her with a bottle. A Lady Beatrice, as scornful as ever. "That's hardly surprising," Beatrice said. "When I'm with you, I see so much to be scornful of." She turned away to follow Don Pedro and her uncle into the house. Benedict nudged Claudio in the ribs. "Pity, the man who married her, eh, Claudio?" he chuckled. "Claudio?" Claudio was glassy-eyed. "Did you see her?" he murmured. "Yes, pretty girl, not as pretty as her cousin, but—" "Hera is the most wonderful person in the world," Claudio sighed. Benedict peered closely at his friend. "You haven't fallen in love, have you?" "Head over heels," Claudio groaned. "Ha!" scoffed Benedict. "You'll be telling me you want to marry Hera next. If I don't, I'll never be happy again," Claudio said gloomily. Don Pedro appeared at the door. "What's keeping you both?" he inquired. "Claudio is in love with Hera and wants to marry her," declared Benedict. "My lord, the day I wish to marry, set me up as a target and shoot me with arrows. Is this true, Claudio? The prince said. Yes, said Claudio. I didn't notice her before because I could think only of the war. But now I've seen her beauty. I can't live without her. What shall I do, my lord? Don Pedro placed a hand on Claudio's shoulder. Leave this to me, he said. Leonato is holding a masked ball tonight. I'll dance with her and explain your feelings for her. If she feels the same, I'll ask Leonato for her hand on your belt. Behave. Claudio beamed. Benedict muttered under his breath. That night, the ballroom of the governor's house swirled with music and dancers. Claudio stood on tiptoe and peered anxiously at Don Pedro and Herrera as they stepped across the dance floor. On the opposite side of the room, Benedict, in a hair mask, was in conversation with Beatrice, whose mask resembled an owl's face. Benedict had adopted a strange accent to conceal his identity. Beatrice knew perfectly well who he was, but pretended that she did not. Won't you tell me your name, stranger? She pleaded. Pardon me, but no, said Benedict. You're as provoking as Lord Benedict, grumbled Beatrice. Lord Benedict? Benedict said. Who is he? He's the prince's jester and the dullest of fools, said Beatrice. People laugh more behind his back than they do at his jokes. If I meet him, I'll tell him you say so. You said so, Benedict said. Please do, said Beatrice, leaping away between the dancing couples. Benedict was stunned. So that's your opinion of me, he thought. A jester and a dull fool. He frowned puzzled. But why should I care what Beatrice thinks of me? He asked himself. We can't stand each other, can we? Meanwhile, Don Pedro presented her to Claudio, while Leonato looked on in smiling approval. My lady is wooed and won, said the prince. You'll be married in the family chapel the day after tomorrow. Leonato declared. These words were caught by a man wearing a fox's head mask. My master ought to know of this, thought the man threading through the throng. He was Don John's servant, Borracho. As Don Pedro raised a goblet of wine to toast Herrera and Claudio, Benedict chanced by. He had removed his mask to reveal a glum face. Celebrate with us, Benedict, Don Pedro urged. Forgive me, my lord, but I'm not in the mood, said Benedict. I'm escaping from Lady Beatrice. I've had enough of her for one night. Don Pedro smiled at Benedict's departing back. What's a couple Benedict and Beatrice would make, he settled. Leonato guffawed. They would talk themselves mad inside a week. I suspect that they're fonder of each other than they realize, said Don Pedro. If we convinced Benedict that Beatrice was in love with him, and Beatrice that Benedict loved her, nature would do the rest. But how could we convince them, my lord? Claudio said. Don Pedro lowered his voice, and the others huddled around like conspirators. Horatio discovered Don John skulking in his room. You should have come to the ball, my lord, Horatio said. Don John scowled. Watching the prince being flattered would have sickened me. Because our father married his mother and not mine, he rules while I serve. I daren't challenge him, but if I could find a way to hurt him and his fawning friends. I may know a way, my lord, Horatio smirked. I've learned that Lady Hera is to marry Lord Claudio. I've also learned that Lady Hera's chambermaid Margaret is sweet on me, and that's given me an idea. What ideas? Asked Don John. Horatio answered at length, and what he said brought a cruel smile to his master's lips. Next morning, Benedict strolled through the governor's garden, steep in thoughts. Why does love turn people into fools? He must. A few days ago, Claudio was a courageous soldier. Now he's a drooling lapdog. It would take a special kind of woman to win my love. Beautiful, wise, witty, well-to-do. Where will I find someone like that? Benedict followed a path between two hedges, and from the opposite side of hedge to his left, he heard Don Pedro chatting with Leonardo and Claudio. The subject of their conversation stopped Benedict in his tracks, but the hedge prevented from seeing the twinkles in the man's eyes as they spoke. So your niece Beatrice loves Benedict, Leonardo, said Don Pedro. To distraction, my lord, Leonardo replied. It's peaceful to hear her at night, whispering his name and weeping, but she behaves as if she detests Benedict, said Claudio. Pretends, Leonardo assured him. She knows that if Benedict finds out that she loves him, he'll mock her for it. To avoid the humiliation, she keeps her breaking her hidden. Should I talk to Benedict and tell him to be gentle with her? Inquired Don Pedro. I don't know what to do for the best, my lord, Leonardo confided. I'm afraid that Beatrice's passion for Benedict will drive her out of her wits. The three men sighed heavily. Let's go inside, said Don Pedro. A good idea might come to us over dinner. For several minutes, Benedict paced up and down, chin in hand, while his mind turned. Beatrice loves me, he thought. Poor girl, I can't stand by and watch her suffer. She must be rescued, and the only rescue is for me to woo her. Benedict, said a voice. Benedict looked round and saw Beatrice behind him. He searched for her face for signs of secret love. The prince sent me to ask you in to dinner, Beatrice said. It wasn't my idea. I don't care whether you have dinner or go without. Thank you for taking the trouble to find me, said Benedict. If it had been any trouble, I wouldn't have bothered. Beatrice snapped. She turned on her heel and flounced off. If I had been any trouble, I wouldn't have bothered. Benedict repeated softly. There's a hidden meaning in those words somewhere. She loves me, sure as can be. It did not occur to him to wonder why he felt so delighted. On her way back to the house, Beatrice noticed her and her maid Ursula seated on the edge of a fountain that was ringed by statues and pedestals. Beatrice went to join them, but ducked behind the nearest statue, and when Ursula stripped Lord Benedict in love with Lady Beatrice? Don Pedro told me so, said Herbert. He asked me to mention it to Beatrice, but I refused. She'll never return Benedict's love. Why ever not? Ursula exclaimed. He's a handsome enough fellow. Beatrice is too cold and proud to surrender herself to any man, said Terror. If she knew about Benedict, she would make a laughing stock of him, no matter how sick with love he is. True, Ursula agreed. Better for the poor man to die from love than from the lashing of Lady Beatrice's tongue. Beatrice's eyes bulged. Cold, proud, me? She thought. I'll show them how wrong they are. I'll save Benedict's life by loving him. Don't die yet, dearest Benedict. She had never thought of Benedict as dearest before. Late that night, Don Pedro answered a knock on his door and found himself facing his half-brother. What is it? Asked Don Pedro. Wake your friend, Claudio. Don John said I have something to show him. At this hour? Don John nodded. If I told him, he wouldn't believe me, and nor would you, he said grimly. You must see for yourself. See for yourselves. On the morning of the wedding, all Lunato's servants gathered outside the family table. Hera looked radiant in her wedding gown. Claudia and Don Pedro seemed uneasy in their smart uniforms. Benedict and Beatrice kept glancing at each other and smiling. The family priest, Friar Francis, raised his hands for quiet. Friends, he said, if anyone knows of a reason why this man and this woman should not be married, then I know a reason, Claudia interrupted. He pointed at Hera. She is dishonorable. Last night I saw her embracing another man. You are mistaken, shouted Leonardo. No mistake, old friend, said Don Pedro. I saw her too. She was on her balcony kissing Borracho, Don John's servant. Claudio and I can no longer stay in this house. Without a second, Hera fainted and collapsed in her father's arms. Beatrice and Benedict hastened to assist her, while uproar broke out among the servants. Don Pedro and Claudia marched and stopped to the clamor. Leonato's eyes were dazed. Can it be true? He muttered. No, here is innocent, cried Beatrice. Of course she is, said Benedict. This is some trick of Don John's to spite the prince's friend. Friar Francis crouched down and spoke quietly to Leonato. Sir, take my advice. Have your daughter carried to her room and announce that she is dead. Claudia will pity her, and pity will rouse loving memories in him. After a few weeks, when she is restored to him, Claudia doesn't deserve her, snarled Beatrice. He shouldn't be punished. Over Overcome with emotion, she scampered into the chapel with Benedict close behind. Beatrice stood before the altar, tears coursing down her face. If I were a man, I would make Claudius suffer for what he has done, she declared. I love you more than all the world, Beatrice. I can't bear seeing you so upset, said Benedict. I would do anything to comfort you. Beatrice glared at him through her tears. Then go to Claudio. Tell him that Hera is dead and challenging him to a duel, she said fiercely. Don Pedro and Claudio were collecting their horses from the stables when Benedict found them. He ignored their greetings, seized Claudio by the throat, and slammed him against the stable door. Hera is dead, he hissed. Your accusations have cost an innocent lady's life. Name a time and place, and I'll fight you with whatever weapons you choose. He released Claudio, who stared in bewilderment at Don Pedro. Hera? Dead? He whispered. Cursing voices made the three men turn their heads. Barascio, with his hands tied behind his back, was being led up to Governor's house by a local constable. What's this constable? Asked Don Pedro. I arrested this villain and am in, my lord, the constable answered. He was drunk and bragging about deceiving you and Lord Claudio. Barascio hung his head. The woman you saw me with last night was Margaret, Lady Hera's chambermaid, dressed in some of her mistress's old clothes, he admitted. Don John paid me to do it. Where is Don John? Demanded Don Pedro. He left at daybreak, Barascio said. I don't know where he was bound. I'll have him hunted down, vowed Don Pedro. Claudio sank to his knees and covered his face with his hands. Hera was innocent, and I killed her, he sobbed. That night, a funeral service was held for Hera. Afterwards, Claudio and Leonato spoke. How can I gain your forgiveness? Said Claudio. Nothing will bring Hera back, but there is something you can do, Leonato said. A poor relation of mine is anxious for his daughter to marry a nobleman. She's a lovely girl, very like my dear dead daughter. Will you take her as your wife? Claudio took close to tears to speak, simply nodded. And so it was the early next morning. Claudio went once more to the chapel to be married. He was met by Leonato, Don Pedro, Friar Francis, and Benedict and Beatrice, who were arm in arm. Where is my bride? Asked Claudio. Hera emerged from the chapel. Here, she said. Don Pedro drew a sharp breath. Can this be same Hera who was dead? He wondered aloud. She was only dead for as long as her innocence was in doubt, my lord, said Leonetto. Cladio's eyes glowed with love and wonder. Her, he gasped. Take better care of her this time, Claudio, or I'll have to challenge you again, warned Benedict. He turned to the friar. Is there room for another couple in your chapel? I asked Beatrice to marry me last night, and she amazed me by saying yes. Don Pedro laughed. Shall I set you up as an archery target, Benedict? He teased. I'm already a target, my lord, said Benedict, grinning broadly, and all the arrows that struck me were fired by Cupid. I do love nothing in the world so well as you. Is it not strange? Benedict, when the end. Bye, guys.